What happened to every number one overall pick in the NFL since 2000? Great question. Let's go ahead and watch this video, react, and talk about what happened to every one of these number one overall picks. 2000, so I was, let's see, 22. So I was 22 minus, so I was like 11 years old, somewhere in there. So I definitely remember all of these players. You know, I was very in tune to sports at this time. I was watching all these players. Now, I will have different kind of views for all these players, like when I was a kid versus when I was a little bit older.
Whatever happened to every number one overall pick since 2000? We've seen otherworldly talent, Super Bowl stardom, and yes, we've had some downright busts. So let's kick it off with the first overall pick in 2000.
Watch Courtney Brown, bull rush, just coming out of the gate, bang! And he is ambushed.
All right, Courtney Brown. Now, this is right at the end of the whole, like, at this point in the NFL, you were drafting, running backs and offensive linemen and defensive linemen, and then slowly it became a very offensive-driven league, and you'll see a lot of quarterbacks and things like that. So this is at the tail end of that.
Courtney Brown again! So the rookie first-round pick has broken out.
This was the pinnacle of Courtney Brown's NFL career. The defensive end out of Penn State was Cleveland's second straight number one overall pick after QB Tim Couch in 1999. Brown started in 16 games as a rookie, but failed to reach his potential in 5 forgettable seasons in Cleveland. He battled injuries throughout his career.
To me, it's always hard when you have a defensive lineman taken first overall because you have to be so dominant to be like worth the pick. I mean, you look at someone like Myles Garrett, right? Someone who's considered probably one of the best defensive players in the NFL. If you look at him, it's like in a redraft, does he go first overall? I don't know, because you have to be. I mean, you have to be Lawrence Taylor. Like, you have to be the defensive player of the year, and you have to be MVP levels to be worth the pick.
Totaling just 19 career sacks. Perhaps the greatest running QB in NFL history.
That's another thing too, is that like a pass rusher, it's a one stat kind of deal where if you don't get sacks, a lot of the times it's hard for you to quantify your value. Because you want to be disruptive, right? So you're looking for like tackles for loss, sacks, forced fumbles. Those aren't easy things to accumulate. Like for a running back, you can accidentally accumulate yards. You can get receptions, things like that. But when you're talking about like a double-digit sack season is probably considered pretty good. You're talking about making like one-ish play a game to quantify. That's difficult.
Michael Vick was a revelation for the Falcons. Atlanta drafted the Virginia Tech star first overall in 2001.
I mean, this is like the opposite, right? It's the opposite of Courtney. Is that Michael Vick was a generational talent. He was something we've never seen before in football. He was absolutely dominant at the college level, and he immediately took the Falcons to new heights. I mean, he immediately dominated the NFL. He should have taken them to multiple Super Bowls. He goes to the Eagles. He's dominant there. Michael Vick is the opposite. Was Michael Vick ever considered a top 5 quarterback to ever live, or a top 10 or a top 20 even? No, but he was dominant. When a quarterback is dominant, the team can go way further than a dominant offensive lineman or defensive lineman. Michael Vick was unbelievable.
After sitting on the bench as a rookie, Vick quickly put his stamp on the league.
Vick on 2nd and 8, off the play fake, has some running room.
Unreal.
Inside the 30, inside the 20, Vick.
I mean, you got to remember, like I said, this is back when the NFL is talking about like a running back's running the ball 35 times a game. Your quarterbacks are not doing much. The fact that Michael Vick could do this is crazy. Teams were not built to do this, and defenses weren't built to do this. You didn't have linebackers running 4.4s. You didn't have defensive linemen running 4.5s and 4.6s. It was big, it was slow, and then he came and he pushed the NFL into a completely different direction. Now, I was a Saints fan growing up, watched every Saints game. Obviously, the Falcons are in the Saints division. Michael Vick raised absolute hell, rained down hell, fire, and brimstone on the Saints twice a year, every year. He was just such a special talent.
To the end zone.
Terrible dog owner, great quarterback.
Falcons win in overtime.
Every moment.
No, not like this. I mean, what ads are we doing here? I can't even skip it. Oh, this is a FanDuel ad. This is for betting. guys, we don't support betting on this channel, guys. We're like, this is not FanDuel. We're not sponsored by FanDuel. I don't really use a lot of FanDuel.
Made 3 Pro Bowls with the Falcons and took them all the way to the NFC Championship game in 2004. In 2006, he set a then quarterback record with 1,039 rushing yards. After serving a 2-year jail sentence, Vick revived his career in Philly, making another Pro Bowl in 2010.
First play from about the 12, and there is Vick, as you talked about, John, rolling and launching downfield.
This is Monday night game. I think this is the game. A lot of people consider like this is the greatest game. One of his Monday night games or primetime games this year with the Eagles is considered like the greatest statistical quarterback performance in history.
For Deshaun Jackson, who accelerates, caught the opening play, and all the way for a touchdown.
The expansion Houston Texans drafted their
So David Carr out of Fresno State. David Carr is a controversial pick because he's considered a bust. But man, the Texans did not help him at all. The Texans bring him in, expansion team, and they absolutely crucified him behind that offensive line. I think he still holds the record for most sacked player in a year. He just got bloodied up. He never really got a chance at all in Houston. He's a tough one to say he's a bust because if he would have been in any other situation, I think he would have been average minimum. I don't think he would have been a bust.
Their franchise quarterback first overall in 2002. The only problem was they couldn't protect him.
Carr pressured, down and thrown down. Number 9 for the Charger defense on David Carr.
Fresno State's David Carr was sacked 240.
I mean, do I know it or do I know it, boys? Sacked 249 times from 2002 to 2006, most in the NFL. That's crazy.
9 times from 2002 to 2006, by far the most in the NFL. As expected, there were growing pains. He threw just 59 touchdowns against 65 interceptions in 5 seasons with Houston. After a 22-53 record with the Texans, Carr went on to serve as a backup with the Panthers, Giants, and 49ers.
Palmer wants the deep ball.
Carson Palmer was a bit of a so this is another thing you'll see with number 1 overall picks is where it's like the prototype guy, the guy who has every intangible possible. He's like 6'5", went to a big school. Palmer's case was USC. Was good there. Bad team, needs a quarterback, and it's like there's nothing else you can do but draft the guy. He's like, if you were to build a quarterback, you'd build Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer was good for Cincinnati. I think Carson Palmer did what you want to do with the number 1 overall pick, where you want them to change the franchise. Palmer did that. Since he was competitive, since he was a playoff-ish team in those eras, since he was fun to watch, since he was relevant. Palmer ended up taking like a year off to play golf because of contract problems. Palmer, I would say, had a good career. I would say he's certainly not a bust. Was he a MVP Hall of Famer? No, but looking back, this is what you kind of want baseline from a number 1 overall pick.
Single coverage, guess who? Touchdown!
USC star and Heisman.
And you'll have to look this up, but I believe they played Iowa in the Orange Bowl, maybe the year that Palmer was drafted. And I was a huge Brad Banks fan for Iowa, and I love that team. And I remember being very upset. I believe it was Palmer's USC team in 2003 who did that. So let's see. Should we look it up?
Trophy win.
Let's not look it up. I don't want to waste y'all's time. But look it up on your own. Brad Banks, quarterback of Iowa.
Winner Carson Palmer brought hope to a demoralized Bengals franchise. Palmer sat his rookie season, but went off in year 2 with a league-high 32 touchdowns.
That's also something that never happened, right? Like a guy like Carson Palmer to sit, I believe it was behind John Kitna, would have been the quarterback back then. But to sit a full year like that is unheard of nowadays.
Touchdown passes. The 2003 number 1 pick made 2 Pro Bowls in Cincy, but the team couldn't find overall success in the 2000s. Palmer went 46-51 in 7 seasons with the Bengals. After a short stint in Oakland, he landed in Arizona, taking the Cardinals to the 2015 NFC Championship game. Palmer threw for over 4,600 yards and 35 touchdowns that season, both career bests.
Pressure from top.
Now, this is when I really was involved in sports. This is when I was like really up there, and Eli was a big deal. Eli went to Ole Miss. I grew up in Mississippi. My cousin actually played with Eli, so I was even more in tune to Ole Miss because he was on the team. So it gave my family a reason to root for Ole Miss. I didn't go to Ole Miss, but when I was growing up, I was certainly an Ole Miss fan for those reasons. Eli, interesting thing, because in his class is interesting, right? You have Phillip Rivers, you've got Ben Roethlisberger, you have Eli Manning, and you have Eli, who got drafted by the Chargers, but then forced his way to the Giants with a trade. You could argue who would go first overall again, probably would be Ben Roethlisberger, but Eli does have 2 Super Bowls. Now, granted, they weren't for the team who drafted him. San Diego at the time, now the Los Angeles Chargers, but San Diego ends up with Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers is, borderline Hall of Famer. The Chargers enjoyed a lot of 12-win seasons. I mean, they were the 1 seed a lot of times. They never had true playoff success, but all those teams, I think Big Ben would probably be the number 1 overall pick, but you can't argue Eli. He's a weird deal. I have this conversation all the time. It's like, is Eli Manning a Hall of Famer? It's like it's hard to not allow a quarterback who had 2 Super Bowl wins into the Hall of Fame. So I would say yes, but individually, probably not. He was never that good. He was never the 5th best. He was never a top 5 quarterback in the league. He was never an MVP. He was never dominant. He was never flashy. He was never any of those things. He snuck out 2 Super Bowls, including defeating the undefeated Patriots. So really weird career for Eli Manning.
Thomas off the edge. Eli Manning stays on his feet, airs it out down the field. It is caught by Tyree.
The legend of Eli Manning.
One of the craziest
plays
plays ever.
The history of the NFL without him. Manning was drafted 1st overall in 2004 by the Chargers, who swapped him for Phillip Rivers. Eli wasn't the prolific passer that Peyton was, but every now and again the Giants quarterback provided a dose of magic in the biggest moments.
4-man rush. Eli throwing into traffic on the sideline, and a rule to catch by Manningham.
Manning won 2 Super Bowls and finished his career top 10 all-time in passing yards, all while starting 210 consecutive regular.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Like with Eli, he played in New York. He played his whole career with New York. He was kind of an Iron Man. He didn't get hurt. He did a lot of stuff that you want from a quarterback and from a 1st overall pick. But I don't think anybody's going to sit here and be like, Eli's the man. Eli's the greatest. I mean, where would he even fall on your list of top quarterbacks? Is he top 15? Is he top 20? Is he top 25? Is he top 30? I don't know.
Season games. Alex Smith or Aaron Rodgers? That was the question heading in.
Alex Smith gets a bad rap too. Alex Smith, a lot of people consider Alex Smith a bust because of Rodgers. Rodgers would win 22nd or something like that. Smith goes number 1, came out of Utah. But Smith had a hell of a career. Smith had a resurgence. He ended up being pretty damn good in San Francisco, and he was really good in Kansas City. He never, and then of course he got injured, and his comeback and all that stuff was unbelievable. If you haven't seen the documentary about his surgery and his recovery, please go see it. It's incredibly motivational and humbling too. But I'm a bit of an Alex Smith apologist. Obviously, if you go back, you take Rodgers here, but then you wonder, would Rodgers be the same? If Rodgers didn't sit for a few years behind Favre, but he was forced to play immediately, would he have been that good? Probably not. Especially, I think Alex Smith had to deal with Mike Singletary and some coaches like that. So, bit of a different game, So, I think it's obviously Rodgers has had the better career, but I don't know if you're Rodgers, I don't think you want to go 1 if you could go back and do it all over again.
Into the 2005 NFL Draft, the 49ers gave Smith the nod, making him the team's first ever number 1 overall pick in the common draft era. The Utah product struggled early, winning just 11 of his first 30 games. Smith and the Niners finally saw their first.
Another thing with Alex Smith is when he was at Utah, he was running kind of an option offense. He was running the ball a lot of designed runs. When he got to the NFL, that all went away. He can move around a little bit, but he certainly wasn't Michael Vick. He certainly wasn't taking designed options. You don't do that in the NFL. So for a player like that, it's always interesting to me whenever they get taken, because the team has to know, hey, look, if we don't do what he did at Utah, then we're taking away an enormous part of why we took him at number 1 overall. So it's on the team to make the system fit a player like Alex Smith. Carson Palmer, he's just an NFL-style quarterback. You don't have to do anything to the system. But I think it's up to the team to be responsible for creating a system that can make someone like Alex Smith good.
First dose of success under Jim Harbaugh in 2011.
Smith on 3rd down.
take it himself for a first down and more. Alex Smith is in.
And I mean they just show what I was talking about, but it's also no surprise that Jim Harbaugh was the one to get Alex Smith to be good when Jim Harbaugh also is the one who made Colin Kaepernick work in the NFL. Harbaugh was great at building the systems to make quarterbacks like that work.
Smith went 13-3 in 2011, but was eventually replaced by Colin Kaepernick midway through the 2012 season. The 29-year-old was dealt to Kansas City, where he
That's another question you can ask yourself too. If Smith doesn't get replaced by Kaepernick and they go to the Super Bowl, and let's say they win the Super Bowl against the Ravens, what does Smith look like now? What's his career look like now? He's not getting dealt to the Chiefs, right? He's still at Frisco, and he's got a Super Bowl win with the team who drafted him first overall. What's that do for Harbaugh? Does he ever go to Michigan? There's a lot of questions there. There's a lot of questions with stuff like that with players like Smith who go first overall, where one change here, one change there, and all of a sudden the tides of history are rewritten.
Thrived under Andy Reid. Smith made 3 Pro Bowls in 5 seasons with the Chiefs before KC moved on to Patrick Mahomes. The journey didn't stop there, though, as he found his way to Washington. Smith suffered a career-threatening leg injury,
Life-threatening,
but miraculously made it back to the field 2 years later.
Alex Smith, for the first time since November 18th, is back out here to play quarterback in the National Football League.
Houston shocked everyone when they took Mario Williams over.
Yeah, so this was the Reggie Bush draft. This was another. This probably played out in the Texans' favor because I don't know. I mean, it's not like Bush was Walter Payton, but this was a weird one because you had some real studs in this draft, some legitimate greatest college players of all time in this draft. Reggie Bush certainly being one of them. For my money, the greatest college running back to ever live. But Mario Williams was good. This is another thing where Mario Williams had a good career. It's kind of a shorter career, good career at points, dominant for sure. At points, probably the best defensive player in the league. At points, certainly the best defensive end in the league. But is he worthy of a first overall pick? Probably not. No.
Reggie Bush in 2006, but it turned out to be the right call as the NC State defensive end had a stellar run with the Texans. Williams went to 2 Pro Bowls and racked up 53 sacks in 6 seasons with the team.
Cutler sacks.
With the next pick of the draft, Bet Rivers select.
We can't skip this either. Bet Rivers, more betting. What's up with all this betting? Is the algorithm saying something to me? I'll say this about Reggie Bush real quick. Would you rather have Reggie Bush's career or Mario Williams, given how it all played out? If you're the Texans, you may go Bush.
For Mario Williams, who says, "Send me to the Pro Bowl."
Williams moved on to Buffalo as a free agent and made an instant impact.
And the reason I say that is what did Mario Williams' dominance do for the Texans?
He totaled 38 sacks from 2012 to 2014, earning an All-Pro nod along the way. No prospect going into the
So this is Jamarcus Russell. So number one, I saw Jamarcus Russell's last game in the Superdome, the Sugar Bowl against Notre Dame. I was at that game. It's also legend that Jamarcus Russell had the greatest pro day in history. Draft experts will tell you to this day that no one has been better. No one has wowed them like Jamarcus Russell. Also, sidebar, I played blackjack with Jamarcus Russell about a year and a half ago. I was at the Golden Nugget in Biloxi. And I was at a $10 table, and Jamarcus Russell showed up. He lives in Mobile, which is 45 minutes outside of Biloxi. And he showed up, no entourage, no nothing. He was just in sweats, sat down 2 seats over, and was just playing $10 blackjack. Probably had $80 of chips with him. It was crazy. I didn't say anything hey, what's up, Jamarcus? But it was pretty wild. Jamarcus was one of those guys that physically, he was like Carson Palmer, but better. He was everything you could ever want in a quarterback, but better, right? He was more athletic than Carson Palmer. He had better tools. He could throw 80 yards or whatever. He just flat out did not want to play or did not care about playing in the NFL. He got an enormous bonus or signing bonus. I think it was $60 million guaranteed, and said, "I'm good." And they kind of changed how they did rookie deals because of Jamarcus Russell. Now, first overall picks are kind of capped at their guaranteed money so that teams don't just give away $80 million and these 21-year-old kids just go home. One of my favorite Jamarcus Russell stories ever is that the Raiders gave him a tape, a VHS of stuff to study for the upcoming game. And so he took it home, came back like 2 days later or whatever, said, all right, coach, watch the tape, good to go, got it all figured out, no problem, we're good, I saw everything, let's rock and roll. And the coaches had given him a blank tape to see if he was even going to attempt to watch it. So that showed that Jamarcus just had no desire to even put in the tape, even give 10 minutes. If he would have put in the tape for 5 seconds, he would have realized it was blank, but he couldn't even offer the Raiders that. Russell's a funny thing because, like obviously hindsight's 2020, but if you go back and do that draft 1,000 times, he's going number 1 1,000 times. Like there's you do not pass on a player like that. So this is Jake Long. This is an offensive lineman here. Offensive lineman picks are always interesting to me because I just don't know how you grade them. I don't know how you say like this was a success or not. Like if Jake Long is a Hall of Famer, like can they be impactful enough? I'm not so sure. I don't think I would take an offensive lineman first overall. To me, if you're going to take a lineman first overall, just trade the pick.
Selected first overall just once in franchise history, back in 2008, Miami drafted tackle Jake Long to anchor their offensive line.
6'7", 313. You got to look at the arm length, 35 3/4. That's excellent. He's tough. He's physical. I think he's a Pro Bowl right tackle.
The Michigan product was an instant success, earning a trip to the Pro Bowl in each of his first 4 seasons. Led by a more physical approach, the Dolphins went from 1-15 in 2007 to 11-5 in 2008. Long was a rock on Miami's O-line, starting his first 61 games, but he battled.
I mean, let's think about this. Like, would you rather have the best offensive lineman in the NFL, or would you rather have the 8th best quarterback in the NFL? Or I'll give you this: you can have the best offensive lineman in the NFL and the 25th best quarterback, or you can have the 25th best offensive lineman and the 8th best quarterback. I think I'm going with the quarterback combo. I want the better quarterback in the middle to below average offensive lineman.
Battled injuries at the end of his career, landing on 4 different teams before retiring in 2017.
40 yards, and here is Stafford's pass, and Calvin Johnson, no timeouts left, time is running. They're at the 1, and Stafford says, come on in.
So the thing with Stafford, another like prototypical quarterback, pro style, SEC team, big school. He's got a Super Bowl with the Rams, but interesting career in Detroit. He padded a lot of stats, but that's about it.
Reaches over, touchdown.
The Lions found their franchise quarterback in 2009, selecting Georgia's Matthew Stafford first overall. The young quarterback battled injuries his first 2 years, starting just 13 games, but after that, 8 straight seasons without missing a game. Stafford and Calvin Johnson.
He's also, he is what you want as a first overall pick. Like I said with Palmer, he made the Lions relatively relevant. He made them fun to watch. He was exciting. He at least gave you like a rock to build around, and he was never really questioned in Detroit. It was never like, should the Lions move on from Stafford? Is Stafford hurting the team? So that's Jesus. What just happened there?
Every moment in life is.
Sorry about that, guys. Hit a little button. So that is important. I think when you're drafting first overall, you do have to make a selection of like, we got to be exciting. We got to give our fans something. We have to give a player who they'll be excited about, buy tickets, buy jerseys. That has to be part of that. Well, let's get back to Stafford.
For a decade, Stafford produced 38 game-winning drives from 2009 to 2020, second most in the NFL in that span.
1 yard to gain. Throw. Touchdown, Detroit.
But Detroit could never put together a playoff run. Stafford won just 45% of his games before getting traded to the Rams in 2021. Speaking of the Rams, they made Oklahoma quarterback Sam Bradford.
This was a weird era in college, because this is when like the air raid Big 12 style offenses took off. So all of a sudden, like Texas, Colt McCoy, Oklahoma, Sam Bradford, Texas Tech with like 20 different quarterbacks. All of a sudden, you have these guys throwing for 60 touchdowns and 6,000 yards every season, and their teams are going 11 and 1 or undefeated and win national championships. But then it's like, well, shit. They're basically playing flag football. They're playing They're never taking a snap from center. They're only taking a snap from the shotgun. Will this translate to the NFL? And we found out it really didn't. So this was kind of like a fad era in the NFL, or a fad era in college that the NFL kind of took some nibbles on. And Bradford was okay. Bradford had some injury issues later on. He never really realized his full potential, but he was hard to pass him up in that situation.
Bradford, their #1 pick in 2010. Bradford won a Heisman at Oklahoma before signing a rookie record $76 million deal with St. Louis. The young quarterback didn't have much to work with in the passing game, producing 5 inconsistent seasons with the Rams.
Play action for Bradford going downfield, and the pass is caught. Touchdown, Chris Gibbon.
And Bradford was one of those kind of guys where, like, if he was in a situation where he could just drop back and sling it like he did at Oklahoma, he was going to succeed. It's just you don't do that a lot in the NFL, at least not back then.
Bradford's pass, and it's intercepted by Malcolm Jenkins. Bradford misses him. Jenkins all the way for the touchdown.
Bradford was eventually traded to the Eagles and Vikings before signing a 1-year, $20 million deal with Arizona in 2018. Bradford's contract success is unquestioned, but his on-field performance never met expectations as he failed to win more than 7 games in any season.
Newton running. Newton gets it.
Now, Cam Newton was a revelation. I mean, Cam Newton, I'm a huge Cam Newton apologist as well. I think he's probably... it's hard to say because he only had 1 year at Auburn, but he's probably, it's either him or Tim Tebow to me to be the greatest college quarterback to ever live. And Cam translated to the NFL. I mean, Cam did. It's hard to do what you do in college in the NFL, but Cam did that. Cam was an MVP. Cam drugged the Panthers to a Super Bowl. Cam was unbelievable in the NFL. I don't think he gets enough credit for how good he was. He was a special player. He was a generational player. You don't see Cam Newtons around anymore. You don't see someone. Cam was kind of like Josh Allen with how Josh Allen plays. Josh Allen might be a little bit better, but peak Cam, MVP Cam, Super Bowl Cam, like that guy, I'm not sure if Josh Allen is better than that guy. And that's saying a lot, and I think people kind of joke around with Cam or take Cam as kind of a meme, but he was legit one of the more special players that the NFL has seen.
To the corner, Cam down the sideline. Cam Newton, hesitation, still on his feet. Cam Newton, touchdown Carolina. What a play.
Cam Newton was an immediate star after the Panthers took him #1 in 2011. The former Heisman winner set a quarterback record with 14 rushing scores, taking home Offensive Rookie of the Year honors. Cam made 3 Pro Bowls in his first 5 seasons. He led Carolina to the playoffs 4 times.
To me, that's like the holy grail. When you draft like a quarterback and you go like Rookie of the Year, MVP, Super Bowl appearance, I mean, that's nothing more you can ask for.
Winning an MVP in the process.
They continue to run him. He is in for the touchdown.
Newton totaled 45 touchdowns in 2015 and took Carolina to its 2nd ever Super Bowl. But his mobility would take its toll as injuries ultimately slowed him down by age 30. Cam was released by the Panthers in 2020 and went on to sign a free agent deal with New England. Andrew Luck was as close to a no.
Luck is funny. I'm kind of one of those guys who's down on Luck, because, all you hear is like he's the greatest graded quarterback in college. He's the most certain #1 overall pick. He's this, he's that. And I mean, he was good for a little bit, and obviously he retired early, but I'm not going to say he's a bust, but I think he gets a lot of hype. I think he gets a lot of hype because we never saw the end of his career. We never saw the bad side. His peak, I'll tell you this, Cam Newton's peaks were way higher than Andrew Luck's peaks.
No-brain #1 pick as it gets. One of the highest rated prospects in draft history, he was selected by the Colts, who had just parted ways with future Hall of Famer Peyton Manning. All Luck did was make 3 straight Pro Bowls to start his career, not to mention also leading one of the greatest playoff comebacks in NFL history.
Like, if here's a think for you to have. Who had the better career, Carson Palmer or Andrew Luck? Who had the better career, Matthew Stafford or Andrew Luck? Who had the better career, Cam Newton or Andrew Luck?
One of the weaker draft classes in recent memory featured a...
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with the Jake Long thing. It's like if you're taking Eric Fisher first overall, just trade the pick away.
Semi-surprise at number 1. New Chiefs coach Andy Reid took offensive tackle Eric Fisher. The Central Michigan product became the first player from the MAC to be selected first overall.
We're talking about 6'6", 306 pounds. His pass pro is easy.
After struggling early in his career, Fisher has turned it around in the Patrick Mahomes era. 2 Pro Bowl appearances in his last 3 seasons and a touchdown catch to boot.
Here's Mahomes trying to set it up. Oh. The big fella, Eric Fisher, the left tackle, eligible and then some.
But the Chiefs released the veteran tackle after the 2020 season when Fisher suffered a torn Achilles in KC's playoff run. 8 years after taking a defensive end first overall, the Texans were back at it with Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah, I mean, same deal where Clowney, really good. You know, Clowney was good, no doubt about it. Clowney was dominant. Clowney is a special kind of guy. Clowney is good, no doubt. But is he a first overall good? You know, probably not.
The South Carolina lineman possessed a rare mix of size, speed, and power. And oh yeah, he could also do this.
Pressure, Clowney just dives in, hits the defender, the ball's on the ground.
Houston paired Clowney with J.J. Watt to form what many thought would be the most dominant pass-rushing tandem of the decade. Unfortunately, a knee injury slowed Clowney's progression early in his career.
I think that was the Manziel draft. I think 2014 was the Manziel draft, and I remember screaming for Houston to take Manziel first overall. So, you know, what are you going to do?
But he rebounded with 3 straight Pro Bowls from 2016 to 2018.
And just a 3-man rush, and that's enough to get to him.
Clowney was traded to Seattle after 5 seasons.
I just checked. It was the Manziel draft.
He then signed with Tennessee in 2020. While he's been productive, Clowney hasn't exactly been the dominant NFL pass rusher you'd expect from a number 1 pick. The D-end hasn't produced double-digit sacks in any season. Fast forward to 2015, where the question...
Woo, man. So Mariota is that guy where Mariota is a very system quarterback. You know, like if you're drafting Mariota first overall, which he went second overall, you're drafting a system dude, and you better put him in that system. Jameis was considered more of that like pro style kind of guy. Jameis is a funny case, you know, where he was really good in college, no doubt about it. He was really good his freshman year in college. He was average his sophomore year in college, I would say. I don't know what like his ceiling was considered. I have to go back and watch like the Mel Kiper stuff, but I would love to know what the draft prospects considered Jameis' ceiling to be in the NFL, because his ceiling in college to me didn't even scream like first overall pick.
Was Winston or Mariota? Tampa Bay elected to go with the FSU quarterback and the 2013 Heisman Trophy winner. Winston made the Pro Bowl as a rookie, throwing for over 4,000 yards. In fact, he averaged 3,800 or more yards through the air in his first 3 seasons.
A lot of those principles here. Winston, nice job to avoid the blitzing Keanu Neal. Now launches one, and it is caught!
Winston led the NFL in passing yards in 2019, but couldn't evade the costly interceptions. His 30 picks were the most by any quarterback since Vinny Testaverde in 1988.
Only 3 points scored in the entire half. An interception for a touchdown.
Like an ad's coming up here, but you know, you have a player like, let's say Tim Tebow, right? I could see where someone's like, well, shit, if Tim Tebow is who he was in college and the pros, you have like the best quarterback in the NFL, you know? But if Jameis was who he was in the pros, or if Jameis was to become in the pros what he was in college, like where does that even land you? You know, how good is he really?
To throw 30-plus TDs and 30-plus interceptions in a season, which perfectly encapsulates his roller coaster play in his career. Winston signed with the Saints in 2020 as a backup to Drew Brees. Another pair of quarterbacks were up for debate.
I loved Jared Goff. I talk about Jared Goff all the time. I like Goff. Now, here's something I heard. Word on the street is that this is when the NFL was putting the Rams in Los Angeles. Word on the street was this pick was basically forced by the NFL to give the Rams a like blonde hair, California, pretty boy quarterback for the team. That's how it was told to me, and that's what I believe was an enormous reason they took Jared Goff was, whatever. Played at Cal, blonde hair, surfer boy, quarterback. Let's get, you couldn't go into LA. You couldn't put a team out there with some older quarterback or non-sexy kind of situation. You had to give them something, and Goff was that guy. Wentz, man, I tell you what, it'd be real hard for me to take a North Dakota State quarterback first overall or second overall just because of the lack of competition, the lack of any of that stuff, the questions of like, why didn't they go to a big school? They'd have to be really, really, really good for me to even entertain that.
In 2016, with Jared Goff and Carson Wentz, the Rams held the first overall pick and chose Goff to lead a new era in LA. After a rough rookie campaign, Goff broke out in 2017, leading the Rams to an 11-4 record. He took it a step further in 2018, making his second straight Pro Bowl with over 4,600 yards and 32 touchdown passes.
By Mackenzie Alexander.
Let me say this about Goff, too. Goff can really spin the pill. He throws one of the most beautiful balls I've ever seen. And I know that sounds sus, but go watch Goff versus the Chiefs when they beat the Chiefs like 55-54 or whatever, and tell me that isn't a franchise quarterback.
Vick might have gotten away with a false start there. They didn't throw the flag. Now in the end zone.
Like that throw right there. What are you going to do?
Come on!
Goff and the Rams went all the way to Super Bowl 53, and that's where the fun stopped. While LA was solid in 2019 and 2020, Goff couldn't quite get his talented team over.
Look at this. 42 touchdowns, 29 interceptions, went to the Super Bowl. His record's good. This guy ain't a bust.
For the hump, the Rams traded the 26-year-old quarterback for veteran Matthew Stafford in early.
Oh, and he's on the Lions now, and he's leading the Lions offense to being one of the best offenses in the NFL.
2021.
Watson to throw on first down, running out of time, and go.
Ooh, off-field issues here. What a player, though. College, one of the most dominant college quarterbacks ever. Really good in the pros. Good pick.
Down back at the 36-yard line. That was Myles Garrett.
Since being drafted #1 overall in
Oops. Watson went like 8th. I don't know what I was thinking. Watson was part of the man, whoopsie poopsie there. Watson was part of the Mahomes draft, I believe, where Mitchell Trubisky went 2nd overall. I think Watson went like 8 or somewhere in there. Garrett, that was embarrassing. Garrett is kind of what I was saying. We're 40 minutes into the video, so I'm good. If you're still watching at this point, put it in the comments below. I appreciate you watching 40 minutes in, but I'll take the L right there, no doubt about it. Garrett, same thing. I already talked about him earlier. Dominant, super good, considered the best defensive player in the NFL by some, considered the best defensive end in the NFL by many. But how good do you have to be a first overall pick as a defensive end? I don't know.
2017, Myles Garrett has been a force on the Browns' D-line. The former Texas A&M Aggie has amassed the 5th most sacks in the NFL since 2017. Garrett has earned 2 Pro Bowl selections and was named first-team All-Pro in 2020. Garrett looks to be a perennial contender for NFL Defensive Player of the Year. Jump ahead to 2018.
Baker, interesting pick. Baker is kind of like what I was talking about with Manziel in Houston. Baker's like he's the risk. You take the risk. I didn't hate the pick, honestly. I think sometimes teams need to take a risk, especially at the quarterback level, where, look, if this works out, we have a franchise quarterback, we have a charismatic guy, we have a marketable quarterback, our unsexy Browns team all of a sudden becomes cool. I think that's worth taking a risk for sure. And not to mention Baker, a very short-term career with the Browns, but he did drag their asses to an AFC Championship game and almost beating the Chiefs. What were they, 13-3 that year? So short stint. I wouldn't say it was bad. I think the Browns, before Baker, they won 4 or 5 games in 3 years. So I would say Baker turned them around and made them relevant. You know, was he the sole reason? No, but I think he gets a lot of flack for no reason.
With the Browns again at the #1 spot. In a year where 5 quarterbacks went off the board in round 1, Cleveland went all in on Baker Mayfield.
And Mayfield stepping up because he sees something deep. He does, and the ball is going to be caught. Touchdown by Jarvis Landry.
Mayfield provided a spark the Browns had.
Mayfield has legit problems in the NFL with like physical tools, you know, his height, stuff like that. He's always injured, you know, but he's a better Manziel is what he is.
Seen in years. In 2018, he threw for a then rookie record 27 touchdowns. After a step back in 2019, the Browns were revived under new coach Kevin Stefanski in 2020.
You got to watch Landry down the seam. Mayfield towards the end zone. It is caught. Was he in? Yes!
Mayfield produced his most efficient season yet with a 26-8 touchdown to interception ratio. Cleveland went 11-5, upsetting the rival Steelers in the wild card round. Kyler Murray became the 3rd OU.
Kyler Murray is kind of crazy. You talk about a good athlete. Kyler Murray was like was he the 1st overall in baseball too? I think he was top 5 for sure. Top 10 for sure. But to be like a top 5 pick in baseball and the #1 overall pick in football is insane.
Quarterback taken 1st overall since 2000. The Cardinals drafted him just 1 year after selecting quarterback Josh Rosen in the top 10. Murray did not disappoint though, putting up more than 4,200 total yards as a rookie.
Murray is so dynamic. When he's taking over, it's hard to really really put into words how good he can be. I think he's another guy kind of like Jamarcus Russell, where I think it's just so easy to him. I don't think he really puts forth a lot of the effort to take that next step. He just kind of relies on how good he is naturally, how good he is as an athlete. And it's kind of scary how good of an athlete he is.
Quick snap, Murray keeps. Kyler Murray with a first down. Kyler Murray to the end zone, touchdown Cardinals.
Murray made a huge jump in year 2 with 37 total touchdowns and over 800 rushing yards. The future is bright in Arizona when Murray is making plays like this.
Murray out of the pocket. 7 seconds. 6 seconds. Murray heaves it downfield. It's caught. It is caught. Miraculous.
A few months removed from a Heisman Trophy.
Unbelievable. I mean, Joe Burrow, one of those guys, again, easy, super easy 1st overall pick. Went from backup at Ohio State to 1-year wonder at LSU, probably the greatest single season in college football history, to, dragging the Bengals to a Super Bowl. Joe Cool is generational. He's a stud. He is so good. Is he better than Justin Herbert? Maybe not.
And a national title, Joe Burrow added #1 pick to his resume. The Bengals took the LSU quarterback with hopes of a 2020s revival. Burrow was the clear-cut starter from day 1.
Here comes the quarterback Burrow, looking for a block, and he got it up in the front by Hopkins into the end zone. Touchdown!
Though the Bengals struggled, Burrow produced
He's
nearly
special.
2,700 yards in his first 10 starts. He was on pace to set a rookie record for.
It's another thing too, where like I say, take a chance on a quarterback. You know, like wouldn't you rather take a chance on a Joe Burrow, even if you miss? Just like every year, just take chances on those quarterbacks until you find your Joe Burrow. Wouldn't you rather that versus good offensive linemen or below average defensive linemen or things like that? Just take your shot.
For passing yards until a brutal knee injury ended his season early. Assuming Burrow is back to full strength, there should be high hopes in Cincy once again.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, there were really high hopes. He went to the Super Bowl. It got even higher of hopes. It was Wiz Khalifa level hopes. There you go. Boom. Every draft pick, or 1st overall pick in the NFL since 2000. Long video. Thank you for watching. Thank you for letting me take you down memory lane. Boom. I'll see you in the next one. No one puts out content like me. I'm the best to ever do it.